of that is maybe my me being naive, but also I want to facilitate a conversation that about these issues, because my concern is that they're never talked about, and when they are talked about, they're talked in ways that don't really hold the Amish community responsible for what they're doing. And so what I hope to do is just have this forthright conversation that shunning is bad. They need to stop it, and sort of treat them or the conversation like we should be able to talk to each other like reasonable people.
Yeah.
Am I gonna become a bitter old man for having that kind of faith in this situation? Or what's your take on how do we make a difference?
Well, to get to the head people, it's very, very hard, and to get them to even consider changing their policies. A few years ago, one of the very first protests, ex-Jehovah's Witness, I found out about was in Warwick, and it was outside their actual head office. Now, they turned the sprinklers on the protesters. They refused to come out and speak to them. They asked security, can you get one of the governing body to come out? And they said no. But within 2 days of that, the governing body actually released an official video backing up their shunning policies by reading scriptures, and said that they're never going to change this policy. So that protest obviously got to them to the point where they felt they needed to come out and make a statement. And obviously they haven't changed. So my idea is now, my activism is normally based towards public awareness, to stop people joining, to let people know at the conventions that if you want to leave, you've got people out here for you that will support you. But as far as getting to the head people, getting them to change, I think unless a law comes in and makes them change, I don't think it's possible.
What about social, getting the population to react to this, social awareness? Is there any sort of impetus in the larger community to I don't know what, make there be a price for them to have these policies or
Well, people have tried to get together. I think in the UK we don't have civil cases, but in America they do. So they've been trying to get together some people to go against them, just for for shunning to just be mentally harmful to people. So there are people trying to take bigger steps to try and actually fine and try and get them to be responsible for the way, many people who are shunned have committed suicide. And, they're responsible for that they don't force members to shun, but obviously if you don't shun, you get disfellowshipped and shunned yourself. So basically they're giving you that ultimatum where you don't really have a choice. So, it's obviously affected a lot of people. So I know there is people trying to get civil cases against them because of their policies. Whether that will end up with them eventually having to change, or whether they will, I think one person so far has only won their case against them. So I don't know. I think it's something.
We can move on from this, but I just, one of my theories or arguments is that the Amish are the way they are in terms of some of these kind of really medieval practices, because the dominant culture caters to them and is actually complicit in creating this this religious authoritarianism in them. The dominant culture supports that, and I guess my hope is that we can create change in the dominant culture to not support that. Can we get district attorneys to prosecute? What do you think of that angle? Can we get help in the dominant culture, in the laws and legislatures to marginalize this kind of behavior, to make there be a price?
I think getting people behind you, because people just say Jehovah's Witnesses, they're like, oh, they're lovely people, and they don't see what goes on behind closed doors. So by making people aware of what's happening, you can get people then that haven't even been witnesses. Like the one guy who helps me a lot, he was never a witness, but he knows what I went through, and it helps me do my activism. So I think to do stuff like that, we need to get more of the public behind us, and then get more numbers to try and do something.
Have you ever encountered like the type of people who when you share like this story or this story, and they respond with the well, that's an isolated incident.
Oh yeah.
And it's not all Amish. And that doesn't really happen. Yeah. Because personally, I've got to say that since I got out of the community and became non-compliant, and went public with my case and all of that, at the end of the day, I've heard so much of that, and I've come to understand and realize that part of that is denial. They want to deny because they have elevated these communities to this stature where they can do no wrong and they can govern themselves. Mm-hmm. And the truth is shunning is not effective in the way, it's just not. It's not an effective way of teaching a better way to people. It's also not
about that. Yeah. So the Amish are considered pacifists. So they are exempt from military service and law enforcement. They use the Ordnung to govern themselves in a nonviolent way outside of the law. And so government and law officials often believe the church are going to take care of the issues, and they leave them to their own devices, which creates a security complex within the Amish. So they do whatever they want to in that gray area between the Ordnung and actual law. Although they're pacifists, the culture flies in the face of numerous fundamental human rights. And I think that if we bring attention to the fundamental human rights that these religions are in violation of, I think that would start a good campaign for us to bring awareness to all these things that are going on. But the problem with that is they aren't necessarily committing crimes against humanity, since most people are complicit or they just don't know any better. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I have. I was at the Elizabethtown College for the Amish conference, and I'll try to make this brief. But an official of a hospital, one of the top people at a hospital, was there to quote unquote learn how to better serve Amish communities, and talked about how their Amish community was starting to use their mental health services. And of course, everybody wanted to know, what did you do? And she ended up describing that, they had a sexual predator. And then she goes on talking about her program, and the audience was just like, what did they do? and the narrator basically said that they took this predator to Mexico and had them snipped, and she didn't want to say the word, and the audience members were finally saying, we know what you mean, you don't have to say it. But this was a room full of required reporters. All almost everybody there was a mandatory reporter, and yet nobody tapped into the idea that what was described was that the Amish community adjudicated this without a charge, without a conviction. They extrajudicially castrated a human being, and nobody in that freaking room blinked an eye. They just kept on talking about other stuff. And I don't want to try to evoke sympathy for a sexual predator, but this person wasn't. Who knows that the actual predator wasn't the bishop, and this was a mentally sort of challenged person in the community and let him take the fall for it.
Just a scapegoat.
They do these things completely outside of a system of justice, and our defenders of, all those people in that room were in the helping professions, and they did not flinch or recognize that at all. And that gives enormous power to these bishops, because they know they can do whatever the heck they want. And the outside community knows about it and won't intervene. And that is a power that should not be in the hands of just normal constituents. It's just insane that we've created this scenario where they have that kind of power.
Well, and not only that, but it also it doesn't. So people forget that Amish in America are still American citizens. They're still subject to law. They still have rights. They have their constitutional rights. You want to talk about constitutional rights? How many constitutional rights of Amish in America are violated every single day? The children don't get an appropriate education. That is a constitutional right in America. Free speech. Do they have freedom of speech? Hell no. Like, let's just think about that for a minute. Because what happens is you have these bishops who have this freedom. It's like they are so power hungry, and they have this freedom of, like, they can say whatever they want to, and their ministry will back them up. There's nobody holding them accountable. There's no visibility of it. There's no transparency. They just do whatever they want to and kind of put it out there, and the church is expected to follow. And if you don't agree with it, what happens? You get shunned.
You get shunned, or they can send you to their own mental institutions. Yep. We got a couple of them here in Indiana.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And if you don't get shunned, then you can get sent to one of these mental institutions, and you can be locked away, or they medicate you, or they try to re-indoctrinate you. I mean, it's absolutely horrible. I don't see how people can still do that.
The Amish literally have their own mental institutions.
Yes, they do.
Wow, I never knew that.
And they send people there, and they hold them there, and they medicate them. And some of them, it's always pills. They just take pills, and they have to take their pills, and they have to promise that they're going to follow the church rules when they get sent, so they can get sent back.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's incredibly horrifying.
I'm shocked at that.
Go ahead, Jody.
No, Mary was talking.
Oh, I was actually going to say, like, maybe Jody should share a little bit more of her story, huh? She comes from Indiana.
Yeah. Can I just provoke something there? And you can go wherever you want, Jody. But last episode, you said something about crimes that are committed. I'd asked you a question. You said, well, all we can do is show evidence of the crimes that are being committed. And I wanted to follow up on that. Do you have evidence of crimes being committed? Because we're all ears.
Oh, definitely. I have a whole page here.
She has a list?
She came with the receipts.
She was prepared.
Of stuff that happens here in Indiana. So one thing that I want to raise awareness to is here in Indiana, if you're in a court case with another Amish family, or anybody who might have been in an Amish family, their mommies and aunts go to court and sit on the defendant's side and try to silence the other party. And it's absolutely disgusting. This actually happened to me in an adoption case. And it made the adoption case go on for 3 years because the Amish kept on coming and sitting on the defendant's side. And the defendant was definitely in the wrong. But anyways, so things that go on here in Indiana, as long as you have money and status in the Amish community, you can buy off the prosecutors and law enforcement. There are Amish guys, like actual Amish, not people that are in Rumspringa, who are drug dealing, they're manufacturing, they're in possession of drugs. We have buggies being pulled over because of drunk driving, and buggies are having drug possession in a buggy. There's sexual abuse, harassment, incest, intimidation. A couple weeks ago, we had a guy arrested for bestiality. And I'm not sure what came of that. I didn't do a follow-up, but the cops actually caught him at his home doing this. And as long as you have status, you can pay off the law enforcement. It's disgusting. It's all about money.
I would really love to see an investigative reporter delve into that, because we already know there's no question that the legal system does not really engage Amish issues. There's this deference that, well, you guys can handle your own thing, and the end result of that is this sort of crazy debauchery, and I would love to have that examined, put somebody in depth into that community and report on those issues.
So just for instance, I had the audacity to stand up to somebody, and they were doing illegal things, and it affected my life. And I was denied job promotions. I was denied jobs because of the lies that were spread about me. My business failed because of viral gossip at coffee breaks. I had to move out of my home I worked my ass off for because of harassment and death threats, just because I stood up to an Amish guy, somebody from an Amish family. And there was no one there to help me. My family couldn't help me. There's nothing that they could do. They just had to sit there and witness this because they had no power to help me. And the Amish can be just absolutely cruel and ruin your life in a blink of an eye. And so I battled with anxiety and depression and PTSD for 10 years because of all the bullcrap that I went through just for having a voice.
Well, you were a woman. You're not supposed to be able to express yourself or have a voice or be a person or have any basic human rights, because you are literally no better than a slave as an Amish woman.
Exactly.
And for all those people who say that Amish women have a voice and they rule the house, that's not exactly true. And the thing about that is it can vary widely among communities, how like people are treated, all their different things. But at the end of the day, so Elam's from Lancaster, Jody's from Indiana, I'm from Wisconsin, and I did live in Western Pennsylvania as well. And in all of those communities, like I know that there's problems with very similar problems to what Jody was talking about with the incest, sexual crimes, bestiality. I listened to somebody confess that they were into bestiality, like stuff like that. Like, I am sure that they did not stop, because Shunning did nothing to prevent things from happening. It does nothing to actually prevent something from like that from happening again. And that's part of the problem, is there's no solution. They don't have the tools. All the tools they have is shunning. That's all they've ever learned, and they've never evolved past that.
Can someone explain for the non-ex-Amish what the plain community is, what plain people means? So I've had a few comments that have mentioned that.
Plain people are people who are Anabaptists in nature. So like Mennonites, Amish, there's all kinds of New Order Amish, Beachy Amish, Schwarzentroober Amish, Troyer Amish, like Lancaster Amish, Holmes County, Ohio Amish, Indiana Amish, Hutterites, anybody with they practice a plain lifestyle, generally with Anabaptist background. They split off from the Catholic Church way back when and started their own communities, and then branched off in like 50 different things because they all disagreed on the level of conservativeness that they have to have. Right, Elam?
Yeah. It's to just say Amish is too narrow of a term, and some of these communities are not Amish at all, and there's a fairly wide range of communities who practice varying levels of plain dress is what it sort of originates from. And so plain communities is just sort of a catch-all term for these communities that are generally what's the term? They're they're isolationist, and there's these strict rules, and you're kind of trapped in them, and there's a very broad spectrum of them, and it's a really poor descriptor to refer to them as Amish. So we try to we try to use the plain community term because it's more accurate and addresses these issues. I identify it as any group that has a fetish for religious freedom that fits into this sort of category, and almost all plain communities have a fetish for religious freedom, and so is that helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just kind of do whatever they want to. Another thing is usually in plain communities, like a lot of them have a specific level of technology that they're allowed to use. Like, we don't use electricity, but hey, I'm gonna put a gasoline-powered engine on 4 steel wheels and use that to bale my hay because that's not creating electricity.
Hey, as
Right?
long as you have solar panels, you can have electricity in Indiana.
Wow.
Mhm.
Oh, can you have a phone too? You just buy it and put it on the
As long
neighbor's
as you,
property
as long
in
as
their
you,
name?
as long as you have a business, you can have a phone and you can have a vehicle too.
Oh,
So, is there any punishments meted out if you get caught using electricity or stuff like that you shouldn't, that you're not allowed to?
No, not in my community.
well, there
They
can
just
be.
give you a slap on the hand, pretty much.
I mean, but usually there's no shunning involved for that type of sin. It's more or less you just get down and say, "I kan bekenne sig feltap."
We need an
Kan
interpreter
inte
on
mer
here.
än geduld och ha det, för bredvid sorg så tjät bist du här. And that's
Like,
the end of it.
I had before a lot of my cousins left the Amish when we were growing up. We were the only family that was not Amish, and they would come over and they would watch movies at our house and play with their English toys. But the very next time we went to their house, they would tell me that I'm going to hell because I'm English. I mean, they can be English just for a little while, but not for too long.
The hypocrisy is just
Mhm.
incredibly amazing. See, in my community, like, the community bought a damn phone, put it on the neighbor's property in a little shack that they built, put it in the
Yeah.
neighbor's name, and then paid the bill for the phone. But they don't own phones. What gives? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I'd like to respond to Jody's comments about I really want to point out that the whole purpose of the United States of America, our Constitution, and the idea that we're a society, we're a society. We have the rule of law, and what Jody is describing is that there's all these other factors of how people decide their affairs, and it just becomes sort of tribe mentality. Whoever's with the most powerful tribe gets away with stuff, and that's a great metaphor for understanding the Amish and their relationship with the larger culture. They're outside of the law, and we need to understand that all the evils that happen in this kind of I don't know, it's called feudal, but it's just this whoever has the most power gets to sort of bully their way through society, and the victims just don't get redressed. That's the whole point of our laws, was that if you get if something bad happens to you, instead of going and killing the family members of whoever, hurt you or took your money or injured, a family member, that's the whole point of the United States of America. That's the whole point of governance. And what we see happening in these Amish communities is this very open, denial and rejection of that concept. And, according to Jody's story, and Mary's and mine, we're just not served by the idea that we have laws for a reason, and we're injured because of that, because we are part of this group that thinks the law doesn't apply to them, and that's what I want to fight for, is to tell the world that this is not working. This experiment with religious freedom is not working. It's in complete contravention to everything we supposedly believe about the United States of America, and it's hurting people, and we need to find a way to assimilate these plain communities into the larger framework of being a society of laws.
I think that if we address some of the human rights infractions that go on in the Amish church, I'm pretty sure that they can also be applied to the Jehovah's Witness community. It might bring a little bit more understanding to the viewers who have never experienced anything like this. Do you guys want to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds like a good plan.
So there are a lot of infractions in this declaration that can be applied to the Amish church, but I'm just going to go over, I think it's 7 of them. Of the 7, there are 4 related to shunning. So article number 5, no one shall be subject to degrading treatment or punishment. So what does that sound like? Doesn't that happen on a daily basis? Mm-hmm. Not to just shun people. Let's see, article number 9, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary exile. It's the basic human right not to be exiled from your community. Number 12, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with privacy, family, home, nor to attacks of their honor and reputation. How many of your reputations have been ruined? How many of you have lost your homes? How many of you have gotten death threats? 18. Everyone has the right to change their religion. Everyone has a right to change their religion.
Hey, Jody, can I make a suggestion? Could you just go through that again and just read 1 and then let us respond and talk about it? In wait.
I like that idea.
You want me to read all of them? Want me to read all 7 of them?
Yeah, go ahead, finish to the end, and then let's take them one by one and just discuss them a little bit, because I think there's very important sort of stuff to
Yeah.
distill out of that.
Okay. So I'll just start over. Article 5, no one shall be subject to degrading treatment or punishment.
So when you're not allowed to sit at the table and eat with your family or eat with your church, or, you know, they can't take anything from your hand, or they can't talk to you, like what is that if not degrading?
It is.
Or your mom
Or if
doesn't
you
say hi to you on the street.
Or if you go to a grocery store and you're followed around by a whole gaggle of Amish women, isn't that degrading?
Yep.
And the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses have actually made statements in their magazines that those that have left are mentally diseased and like criminals. And they're allowed to get away with saying that shit about us just because we decided we don't believe what they do anymore.
It's funny.
What's so bad about this is that our government coddles and supports this kind of violation of human rights, and the Amish could very easily just defellowship people. You know, I was a member of the most liberal church in Lancaster, so liberal that 99% of Christian churches don't think they're actually a real church, but they freaking had an excommunication policy. But there's a difference between just saying, all right, you're no longer a member. That's cool. I don't want to drive a horse and buggy. Fine. Make me a non-member. But the shunning part, where there's this punitive action then taken against me, that's what causes, to use a fancy term, pathology. And what really causes pathology is when our government is actually complicit in enabling and encouraging this kind of a religious authoritarianism.
Yep. Because they don't actually ever, well, I shouldn't say ever, because it has changed a lot in how, like, civil authorities look at Amish. We're still not where we need to be. But when you bring a case to civil authorities, I've heard many, many reports from people that they bring it to civil authorities and they tell them that person's Amish, they would never do that. Or they say, well, you have no signs of it, so we can't do anything about it. Just kind of like throwing everything out because that person's Amish. And so it kind of creates that situation. And that's why Elam says they're complicit. Part of it.
Well, let me just give another example. So there, you guys may have all seen this. Cosmopolitan did an article on sexual abuse, survivors, and interviewed, followed several of them, and one of the stories was that this young woman, I'm not sure if she was a minor at the time. I don't remember for sure. She may not have been a minor, but I think she was sexually assaulted. She started speaking up about it. They took her to one of these mental health facilities, which aren't legitimately mental health facilities, but they coerced her to take a psychotropic drug which can only be prescribed by the psychiatrist. But she didn't have an evaluation. They just take her to this place and coerce her to take a psychotropic drug. And that's illegal. And I took that story and I went to our local district attorney's office. I spoke to a detective, and they did not lift a finger to respond to this. They put it back on me. It was my responsibility to figure out what jurisdiction this happened in, and then report it to some regulatory agency. They didn't take any responsibility that as a law enforcement official, me bringing a violation of the law to them, that they had any responsibility to pursue this. And that's how they, this administering psychotropic drugs to to a person, if you're not a doctor who is licensed to do that, that's breaking the law. Anyway, I just want to point that out.
That ties into Article 7. All are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law.
So tell me, was the Amish dentist following the law when he injected cow Novocaine in my mouth? Was that following the law?
And took all your teeth out? And did anybody, pardon me, fucking do anything about it?
Nope. Nobody did anything about it.
Anyway, I think this understanding the degree of collaboration that happens between the dominant culture's civic authorities to enable this kind of abuse is really important, because it's a place we can start to fight back. And we can, anyway, I'll go ahead, read the next one, or if anybody else wants to comment.
Number 9, Article 9, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary exile.
Ha! You mean like when... Okay, I got this. Let me talk about arbitrary exile. So when I reported...
Oh, you woken Mary up now.
Yeah, this is something that still infuriates me. And it's not saying that I wish the community ill will. It's saying, let me clarify that. But it's saying that what happened when I reported the sexual assaults that had happened to me, in hopes that I could, help my sister, because I knew that my sister was being sexually assaulted and my sister was fucking 6 years old. That is an atrocity. So I reported it. First off, I wrote a letter to the ministry that I put in the minister's mailbox the day I drove away from the community, and they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Second off, when I drove away, I went and stayed with a lady who had driven around some Amish people, and they had her phone number. They called her so often that we had to call the sheriff's department and have them go out there and tell them not to call. And a month later, I answered the phone, and it was my rapist. And that when I got off the phone with my rapist, I called the sheriff's department and said I would like to report a crime. I reported it. There was a full investigation done. They arrested them. And then the church decided to shun them and me. By the way, that's when I got shunned. When we went through the court cases, there were 4 busloads of Amish people who sat there and cried and testified for this predator. Mm-hmm. And the Judge Rossborough, even said, I have to ask myself, how many of you have actually cried for Mary? Where is your, They didn't. And when I walked out of that courtroom, my freaking cousin and his little friend, the bestiality confessor, walk up to my car, and literally I got in my car, went to close the door, and they had the door open and I couldn't close my door. I was escorted to my freaking car. So, how is that not exile?
And like when I left, I got to about 18, 19, and I didn't really want to be in the religion anymore. So I stopped going to a lot of the meetings. I stopped going door knocking and that kind of stuff. And then at 21, I turned around to my mum and stepdad, who was an elder. And I just said, I don't want to go to the meetings anymore. And they said to me, well, you've got 8 weeks to move out of the house. I was like, okay. I was working part-time only because they said I needed to be knocking doors the other time. So I had no financial backing. My nan worked for a loan company that was very, very high interest. So I had to borrow money off her to try and get money to move out, get a bond. And then it was my boss's party, 4 weeks notice into that 8 weeks notice. And they said to me, if you go to that birthday party, you are not welcome back in this house. And I just thought, well, what difference is 4 weeks going to make? I'm not going to find anywhere that fast anyway. So I just went to the party. And then I ended up going back to this lad's house who was brought up as a witness but was never baptized. And I went back home expecting to pack up all my own bedroom, and it was all packed there waiting for me in the hallway. And I just thought, wow, you really just want to shove me out the fucking door, don't you? And like all my stuff was packed up, and then it was see you later, and not speak to me since.
That's horrifying. Abjectly.
I'm so sorry that happened.
Ooh, man, these articles of human rights bring up some emotions.
Yeah, they do. The next one's, I think, a pretty big one. Article 12. No one shall subjugate. Sorry, guys. No one shall be subjugated to arbitrary interference with privacy, family, home, nor to attacks of their honor and reputation. This is one that I can talk about this one for 2 hours if you guys want to. About all
Jody, please take a minute and just talk a little bit, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, talk about that, Jody.
I legally cannot share what happened, so maybe I'll do that not online.
Okay. So let me tell you about like my reputation. So after all of this, my friends started being followed by the cops. They started being questioned by the cops, and it turns out that anytime anybody, anything happened, if somebody drove around a horse and buggy too fast, they would call the sheriff's department and say I was out there harassing them. I wasn't even physically in that location. I literally was like 45 minutes away, and there was no way possible for me to be there, like literally. But it was like also I was accused of being addicted to opioids because and I was supposedly, I did all this because I was pregnant, which is funny because I wasn't. And just
one
all of that.
One thing that I can share is about my business failing because of gossip. I used to be a massage therapist, and about 80% of my clients were Amish. And as soon as I stopped adhering to what they wanted, they started gossiping, and it completely ruined my business. And I was a single mom at the time. That was my second income, you know. And yeah, I pretty much lost everything just because I did not follow what they wanted me to, because I didn't stay in a relationship that they wanted me to stay in. I mean, they don't have the right to tell you what relationship to stay in, especially if it's toxic.
Mm.
Mm-mm. No, they really don't.
It's sad that they would do that extent to you. Sorry they did that. That's like a really shitty thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
But
I mean, they have ultimate power.
Privacy is a big issue with JWs as well, because I'd left and I was living in this guy's flat, and the elders were camped outside, sat in their car, and they came and knocked on the door and asked for me, and my boyfriend at the time said she's not here. So they sat in the car and waited. And I went to what we call here the chip shop, where you can buy, like, I don't know if you guys call them chips or fries, but you can buy like fish and pies and that. And it's like a takeaway place. And I walked over there to go and get some dinner and come back, and they were chasing me up the road, going, we need to talk to you, we need to talk to you. And they literally sat outside my flat in their car waiting for me. It was just like, guys, I've left, like, leave me alone.
Yeah, I even had they even sent some people after me who were in Rumspringa to harass me at my home to make me feel like I'm scared. I had people break into my house and move things, take things, leave notes. And I was a single mom at the time, and I was scared shitless.
Wow.
This is just classic sort of mob behavior that happens when there is no rule of law. You know, we're just a bunch of bullies, and you have violated our community standards, and we get to, you know, oppress you. And I really think that our civic laws have a role to play in this.
Well, they need to be.
They need to just, dial that stuff back. Yeah, it happens in these organizations and stuff, but they need to not have such a broad, there needs to not be such broad tolerance for this kind of behavior.
They should be arrested for that stuff. Why are they allowed to do it?
Because they like to say that Amish. I don't know if you guys saw it, like a screenshot of a comment to, like, in the case of the 13-year-old that was impregnated by her rapist brother in Missouri last September. Somebody wrote a letter to the editor because there was a big outcry from the former Plain community, and we all tried to raise awareness and reach out to the civil authorities in that case. And somebody responded with this whole, like, it's like a perfect example of what the outside world thinks of the Plain communities. Like, they can govern themselves. There's we should just leave them alone. That we don't need to interfere with them because the bishop and the ministry will take care of it. And yeah, we all know what that taking care of entails, and ostracizing somebody and exiling somebody or castrating somebody or shunning somebody, like, all of those things are not effective. Like, as far as, like, one, there's zero assistance for the victim. If you ostracize the victim, you're victim blaming. That's fact.
Mm-hmm.
Two, when you punish the victim the same as you punish the predator, you are sending a message that them being a victim was their fault.
Yeah.
That's not okay. And again, they don't have any other tools because that's all they've ever had. That's all they've ever known. And then you have parents who, they're like, well, it happened to me and I'm fine. So, it's okay. It's not okay. So, in a way,
got any more of these crazy ideas, Jody? What do you got left?
I
on
do. That? I do. I'll read the next one and then I have a comment to make on it. Number 20. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. So, my parents had me. During Rumspringa, so I wasn't ever technically part of the church. I grew up in it, but I was never technically a part of it. And I had Amish ladies that would come up to me and tell me, oh, you're going to make such a pretty little Amish wife. We can't wait until you grow up. And I was being groomed to marry into the Amish community that I wasn't even a part of. And it's sickening that they do that.
It's, the thing about that is when you start talking about that, like, no one shall be compelled. So, I mean, like, first off, like, you're inside of this Amish community, to translate, when you start joining the church, there is a whole session about halfway through where you go for your counseling to join the church, and you have to promise that, like, you will never, like, ever expose the church secrets to anybody that's not a church member. And I can tell you that I will gladly do that for you today.
Yeah.
But what they do is, like, I had a brother who didn't join the church when they wanted him to, and they, like, practically bribed him to join the church. Like, I'll do this and this and this and this for you if you join the church.
Well, I got baptized as a Jehovah's Witness when I was 13, and all my friends were doing it, about 8 other friends at the same time, same age. But my mum and my stepdad kept telling me, if you're not baptized and Armageddon comes tomorrow, God's going to kill you because you haven't got baptized. So what's a 13-year-old going to do? You're going to get baptized. It's just like, it's such, like, they use so many fear tactics. So they say you had a choice. I was 13. You scared the shit out of me. That's not giving me a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, she is now in her 50s, and my grandpa is still after her to join church. Still after her. Duhush det oförbra med mig. And du tar slevenet vat and you have a 7 net degree okist.
That's some harsh.
And
Es ist kein Hoffnung, es ist nicht eine Hellgeist.
You guys need to translate, please. I know what you're saying, but Emma might not know.
I know. But it doesn't sound good.
So
I love hearing.
My grandpa always reminds my mom that she's an oath breaker and there's no hope for her salvation if she doesn't join the church. And my mom is a Spitfire and she pretty much just tells him to F off.
Right.
She's like, I don't care if I'm going to hell.
Yeah. Pretty much.
There was another part in there where the translation is that you're never going to amount to anything.
Yeah, you're never going to amount to anything.
Yep.
And you know, that's prophecy when he says that, when they have the power to ruin your business, where if you're the good little person, yeah, they'll patronize your business, but boy, you step out of line, whoosh, that's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to be a society of that doesn't turn into this sort of savage, you know, retaliation spiral that never stops, there's plenty of scenarios in history of how this works. We have to have a little bit more, I don't even know what, but there has to be some equality and justice in our civic space. And what is being described here is a total lack of it. These religious authoritarians are just a bunch of, to use a term that some people understand, they're just a bunch of mullahs. They're just bullies in religious garb, and we can't have a healthy society. We can't have justice. We can't have effective responses to these crimes if these bullies get to walk around as you know, anointed figures in their community. And yet that's the situation we have. Mm-hmm. These people get to do this crap, and their victims are, you know, scattered to the wind, and the general viewpoint of the population is that, oh, the Amish are great, you know, aren't they wonderful? They make great furniture, and nobody's allowed to to speak negatively of them. The newspapers won't run, you know, hard-hitting critiques of Amish issues. The academics like Donald Crable won't accurately study the pathologies that are inherently a part of Amish life, and so everybody just thinks they're wonderful. And in the meantime, these situations just fester and flourish, and that's what we're trying to push back on. We need a way for our community to be healthier, to evolve and protect children and sorry, I'll stop there.
Give them an education, like, you know, an actual education.
Okay, so the last one I want to bring up is Article 18. Everyone has the right to change their religion. It is a basic human right to be able to change your religion, to change your mind.
See, I can't even agree with that one. That's just too wild there. Sorry,
that is wild. Facetious. That is crazy. Who knew that people could change their religion?
Mm-hmm.
Or that they had a right to. That's incredible. But
it just astounds me that they actually had to make a law to bring awareness that it is okay to change your religion. That you're not allowed to be persecuted for changing your religion. They actually had to go to a convention and draft up this law because there's so many religions out there that persecute people for leaving. And I'm pretty sure the persecution in other religions might be even worse than what goes on in the Amish and Jehovah Witness communities.
Are we going over time here? Like
Yeah,
a
we're like 7.
Amish preacher?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. Die meest nog een keer moest je nog toe blijven.
Maar hij had net nog fatty. So nog zeker.
De goede man wil hebben het eerder zocht.
I'm
Whoever
sorry,
shouldn't do that.
Emma. I apologize.
I think I'm putting
Apologize
subtitles on next time.
Say what?
What's that?
I think I'm going to put subtitles on next time.
Yeah. Well, here, I'm serious.
We're just kind of
about-
making fun of like Amish preacher things.
What I
kind of,
think should
sorta.
happen is we should dub in the translations on
Mm.
these. Would that
Yeah.
be possible?
You can do
Elam.
that on YouTube. You can go back and put subtitles, because I did a ghost story video, and then when I watched it back, my Birmingham accent was very strong, and I thought not a lot of people are going to understand what I'm saying, so I went back and put like subtitles for the whole video.
Yeah, if
Okay.
we could just do
I
that
mean-
for the German speaking that happens on here. I love to hear it. I especially love.
What? You're asking technologically impaired people, like,
Come
this is
on,
where we
Mary.
come from. Come on, Elam.
Don't give me that crap.
I'm gonna tell no, I was Amish. That means I'm
Well-
technologically impaired.
Well, Jody can probably do it. She wasn't technically on it.
I could possibly do it.
I'm just kidding. But no, it's kind of like we probably should dub that in, because some of it is it's relevant.
I think it's powerful and it's important, but it needs to be, the translations need to be dubbed in, because we don't want to just be talking amongst ourselves.
Yeah, this is true.
Please.
I don't know. I mean, aren't you forgetting your role as the Amish man? You're just supposed to tell me to do something, and I'm supposed to do it.
I'll get away with
That's
that
gonna
as much as I can, but which is pretty much nothing.
How about I think about it, and I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay.
So parting thoughts, I would like to reiterate that one of the things that Emma has done is a lot of activism as far as awareness, and those are things that need to happen for our communities as well. I have put links in the comments to an organization called A Better Way that aims to help survivors from plain communities, and also to an organization called Never Stand Alone USA that is, again, aiming to help survivors from plain communities. Anybody else have resources, links, anything?
I have my Facebook group, which obviously I met you through, Mary. So it's called Ex Jehovah's Witness Unite, but it's also for other people that have come from different cults as well, because we can all relate to each other. So anybody who's ex-Amish, Mormon, we've got a few other random cults that people have left. So everyone's welcome to come along and join my Facebook group for support.
You can go to UN.org and look up the human rights violations and see if any of those apply to your religion. I have a YouTube channel called The Mockingjay, where I mansplain things about religion and other things.
Oh, and Emma also has a YouTube channel called The Glass Table Live.
Yeah, we're like ex-Jehovah's Witness activists, but again, we've had like Mary Arm, we've had Sam Young, who was an ex-Mormon bishop. We've had Cal on, who's ex-Mormon as well. So we've covered a few subjects of what we've got all like in common. Like Shunning, we covered, but we didn't go into it as in depth as we do here. But we did cover a few subjects where we all spoke about what's in common with our religions, well, cult kind of things.
Well, I don't have any link. Go ahead.
I'm also Judge Me Unforgiven on YouTube, where I've also put videos up of some activism I've done. So if you're interested in seeing me stood next to a car and then packing up within 10 minutes, or me talking out loud at the Kingdom Hall, and that wasn't appreciated because they tried to drown me out with some music. I'd finished my sentence anyway, so it was quite comical.
That's pretty amazing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here and sharing your stories. Your stories are powerful, and hopefully they'll make a difference.
Thank you for having me.
It's been fun.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.